Hello and welcome to Channel 2S. I'm your host, Second Soundwave, and today we're looking at the high-grade Hyakuri from Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Just like pretty much every other kit from IBO, the Hyakuri retails for less than 1,000 yen, which is great if you want to build up the whole line on budget, but unfortunately not so great for the kit itself. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a terrible kit, and they probably did as good a job as they could at this price point, but I can't help but feel disappointed in the end result. But, moving on, the box art's done the same style as all the other IBO kits, so I'm not going to dwell on this for too long, but the front's pretty much just the sort of a cool illustration of the Hyakuri in both its modes, and then it sort of fades to white here on the left. We've got a picture of laughter down here, and then the title is written sort of vertically along the side, just like pretty much all the other boxes. And there's nothing really too special here at the top or bottom, just pictures of the kit in some different poses. So here we have the Hyakuri all built up, and I'm a really big fan of the colors they use for this to give it a kind of desert feel. Now the design itself is definitely an odd one, most noticeably the most notable part of it being, this big thruster pack here at the back that just kind of juts out from the shoulders. It reminds me a lot of the Justice Gundam's Fatum pack, except that the Fatum pack could be folded down and this thing just kind of pegs straight down the top of the torso with no room for movement up and down at all. And as you might expect, this makes it really, really back heavy, so that's why you get one of these little basic stands. It comes with the kit, and it's the same mold as the one that came with a lot of the Build Fighters kits, but I think this is the first time we've gotten it molded in completely clear plastic. You also get this little gray adapter piece up here, since the stand isn't quite tall enough to support the backpack. And looking at the MS design as a whole, there's actually a lot of great color separation going on here. The only thing I really take issue with is the white on the elbows here. There's no actual white plastic, you're just supposed to wrap 3 white stickers around the panels, and the one here in the middle of the joint, this one holds on fine, and it actually looks quite nice. But the side two were so awful I just had to rip them off and paint over them instead. And I'm not sure how clear it is through the camera lens, but the white on this kit is kind of like a creamy off-white color. And then I just used a basic white Gundam marker for the sides here, so the colors don't exactly match up, but they're close enough. There's a lot of stickers here on the backpack as well, but they're all very secure and don't look bad at all. Although I do think the brown panels here could have very easily been plastic, since there's nothing but hollow space under the middle section, so they could have easily just left the panels open and then just had a brown piece underneath that would show through. But I do like the white thrusters here on the back. It helps them stand out from the gray frame sections. Speaking of, this kit more or less has a total inner frame. There's no frame with the shoulders and the neck, but everywhere else there's a full skeleton. It's nothing all that interesting to look at, so I'm not going to take off the armor right now and show you, but I can say that it is different from the Gundam frame and the Graves frame, and it's currently unique to this kit. It's also almost entirely polystyrene, with the only polycaps being in the neck, shoulders, and hips. Articulation on the Hyakuri is a mixed bag. The head moves around a lot, considering that there's a hard plastic shrouder on the back, so it kind of goes side to side, it looks down, it looks up, it rotates around. It's actually got some really nice movement in here. And then the shoulders are on the same sort of swing-out polycap and ball joint that basically every high grade in the last 8 years has used. And then you can swing the shoulder up about 90 degrees. The brown parts in the booster do move up a little bit, but they're still going to get in the way if we're going to try to move the arm all the way up. And it does like to pop out of the joints a little too much. And the elbows have a full 180 degree bend, so that's nice. You get them out to the side, and you can get it pretty much a full 180. And then the wrists, exactly like any other high grade, it's on a little ball joint. Nothing too special there. And then the torso's actually got some really good movement. You can tip it forward and back quite a bit, and it even goes side to side nicely. Although once you start spinning it, you can only get it about this far before the pistons here in the torso kind of jump out of their little track, which is a bit of a shame, but overall not too bad. There's no skirting armor of any kind, so the forward and back hip movement is outstanding. And there's even a little pair of pistons that move in tandem with the hips. But due to the way the hips are shaped, they only move this far outwards, and when you do move them this far, the pistons kind of pop out of their little seating there. But the knees do have a good bend to them, and they go about that far, which is nice. And then the ankles are pretty disappointing because they wiggle side to side a little bit, and that's it. There's no front to back, no turning, it's just a single hinge. Only other movement we got down here is the toe joint for the transformation. It's ultimately not an issue though, because the kit kind of has to be on a stand anyways due to the backpack, but it still feels kind of lazy on Bandai's part. So most of the articulation is very good. I am worried about the longevity of the hip joint. There's a polycap in the hip itself, but the piece it connects to is just attached to the waist by a basic sort of polystyrene friction connection. And it's stiff enough right now, it holds up the leg fine. But I can definitely see this thing loosening up over time, even if you don't use it that much. I guess it's just one more reason to never take this kit off the stand. When it comes to accessories, the Hyakuri doesn't exactly deliver. For starters, there are no alternate hands of any kind. The generic holding hands you see in the kit right now, those are the only ones you get. For weapons, you just get a pair of beam rifles, and they're okay. But what you don't get, however, is the missile pod that comes with the second weapon pack. You also don't get the tow cable, and that's not included with anything. So if you want to recreate the Barbatos' first fight with the Hyakuri, you're gonna have to get creative. The only other accessories you get are a pair of adapters that allow you to attach these sections of the backpack onto the arms as a kind of punching gauntlet. And they're kind of like the normal sort of shield connectors you get with any other Gundam, where they have both a underarm position and a sidearm position. And it's kind of a cool gimmick, but I can't really recall the Hyakuri ever doing this in the show. And finally, the transformation. Now, the cool thing about this is that you actually don't have to take anything on or off of the kit at all. Even the guns can stay here in the hands. So to start, I'm just going to kind of pop this off the stand just to make it a little easier on me. And I'm going to work sort of from the bottom up. So first off, we're just going to fold the feet down. And then the rest of it's pretty much just going to be done to the arms. We're going to take these panels back here. And before, we took them all the way off to attach them to the arms. However, you can actually just leave them on this section here, and it actually makes a nice little hinge. And then you take the gun, you fold that up, and then you try to fold it up here around the stock, and it's got a little bit of a tab there that actually holds in quite nicely. And then you just kind of fold the handle to the side, straighten up the arm, and then you just push it back in here, and the gun lines up perfectly with this hole in the side. And then the arm is now folded in, and the gun sticks out off the side, and it actually works really well. It's a nice, smooth, intuitive transformation, and I have to say I actually like that a lot. It's pretty fun. And here is the Hyakuri in its flight mode. Only other things you really have to do is just kind of adjust the posture a little. You kind of swing the legs back, but that's just subtle stuff, so I did it off screen. I should also mention that there are actually two stand connectors on this. There's one here in the backpack, and then there's the one in the waist I have it attached to right now. You don't get those little plugs for either of them, but that's kind of okay with me since I never really used those anyway. They always just kind of ended up just rattling around in my parts box, so it's not really a major loss, and they aren't really that noticeable anyway, so whatever. But yeah, I really like this flight mode. It's got a kind of cool, sleek look to it. I mean, it was only ever used in space, and tucking your arms in space doesn't exactly make you more aerodynamic since there's no air, so not exactly scientifically sound, but whatever. It's Gundam. It's just supposed to look cool, and you know what? This looks cool. It really does. So, final thoughts on the Hyakuri. It's not terrible. It definitely has some issues, many of which I think could have been easily averted. I would have liked it if they included all the weapons and maybe bumped the price up by like 300 or 400 yen. I would have honestly been okay with that. I also think the inner frame's kind of gimmicky, especially since it takes out a lot of the polycaps, which can weaken the joints over time. I mean, it might not be something that's immediately obvious right now, but I've noticed with the Schwalbe Greys here that over the months that I've had it built up, and I've only maybe posed it like twice, a lot of joints on this, pretty much only the plastic on plastic ones, have definitely loosened up since I first built it, and I'm very worried that that'll happen with this here too. However, we do get a stand, so the hips may just not end up being an issue over time. I don't know. I'll probably come back to you with an update maybe a few months from now, or I'll just add it into the end of my next IBO review. I'm not really sure. But, I mean, it's not terrible, and I think it definitely has its issues. I kind of talked about the issues already, that shoulders are kind of loose. I think that's just a quality control thing, but Then, of course, there's the hips that I already talked about, and the fact that it's very, very, very lacking on the accessories. But all that aside, it's actually still a pretty cool kit, and it's a unique design, and on top of all that, it's actually pretty cheap, so it's not like a huge investment to pick one up. So, in the end, I'd say, yeah, it's definitely worth getting. If you like the show, it's definitely worth picking up, since it's a pretty cool mobile suit. It does some cool stuff. It's got a cool pilot. And it's just an interesting looking design that'll definitely stick out on your shelf. So yeah, this has been Second Soundwave. Overall, I give this kit a thumbs up. It's a reluctant thumbs up, but it's still something I'd probably recommend to you. And I guess I'll be seeing you next time when we'll be coming at you with another Gundam review. Or will I?